Um, Welcome again to Agbo, the Poetics and Potentialities of a Community-Centered Design Practice. Um, I am really excited to be joining the Ujima Arts and Cultural Organizing Group again to have this dialogue on how design can really support our social transformation goals and work in our communities. With me today, co-facilitating is Patrick from Nigeria. He is currently a significant collaborator, and we have been dialoguing a lot around how conscious design is crucial to transforming the world around us. And so he will be facilitating some of this session. One of the things I would like to say before we enter into the actual PowerPoint, the Arts and Cultural Organizing Learning Pod wanted to have a quick dialogue with the group to see what the group would like to learn and create together in the upcoming months in this pod, and what are the kind of practices we would like to collaboratively build together as a community. James, would you like to facilitate this, or is it okay if I continue facilitating this aspect?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's much. The way our model works as it relates to arts and cultural organizing, is that we really just want to populate some names, some ideas, some teachers locally in our community that you guys want to learn from, that we can hire to facilitate this learning pod after Mobolaji is done. And so just really want to give space for you guys to share some opportunities for us to do that learning after Mobolaji's tenure. So yeah, so any suggestions, ideas folks have? And anyone can offer a suggestion or thought, regardless of it doesn't matter who you are.
I have a suggestion actually.
Yeah, go
So
for it.
there is an amazing weaving teacher in Boston. His name is Stephen Hamilton, and he can teach how to weave with just using basic materials. So weaving in a form he learned while he was living in Nigeria, and he's giving these classes. He's going to be giving another couple of these classes in the next couple of months. But yeah, that could be something that if people want to learn a practice, an embodied practice, that's a teacher that could share from the local community.
I'm new to this group, so I don't really know how things flow. But I'm just thinking about drumming. Drumming is always fun to do, and I think that's easy to use any material around. Um, so that's a suggestion that I have. Is really just like even music. I think that's a great connector in general. So if there's any like um, musical work or singing or anything like that, the range is pretty broad, but whatever is accessible for the group, that would be good for us to connect on.
Yeah, I have something to say also. Um, yeah, alongside the suggestion that was just made, I think we could have more of spiritual, uh, ritual kind of session where um, there's this music playing in the background and sets the tone for prayers or something of that kind. Just something to create that spiritual atmosphere and get us more in tune, body and soul, to the session. No, not church. Not the church. One could be playing a samba or something, and not church. Meditative stuff, not church.
I can't.
I was like, I don't want to go to church now.
It's a cultural session, so I think there should be so much of that cultural level.
Yeah, no, I see. Like inviting shamanic teachers
Something
or
like that.
yes, that would be nice. Okay. Does anybody else want to share so that we can take time, maximize our time? We have just 45 more minutes.
Okay. Well, my concern is to get anyway, painting, music, to get social justice things like the poor people, blacks, immigrants. I'd like to make them human and make people see what they're going through and try to make them feel more with them and more sympathetic. I mean, I want political change somewhat. And I want people, like I think at the Chinese Progressive Association, once they had like a homeless thing and they did a tour, the political graphics. And one thing is they had like the homeless, and they had this sign, this is your land, this is my land, and then a no trespassing sign. And then in the German one, there was a parking meter in their house that they had to keep feeding coins into to stay in the house. And they had a woman in high heels walking by, just showed the legs and the high heels walking by a sleeping homeless man. I just wanted to try to make those things more human.
Louise, did you say the Chinese Cultural Center? Is that what it was?
No, Chinese Progressive Association.
Progressive Association, okay.
And what they had was called Political Graphics doing a tour, and they have Political Graphics do a tour at their place.
Thanks, Louise.
You're welcome. Oh, wait. I don't know if I have your email because I sometimes get messages from the Political Graphics. Yeah.
Okay, so would anyone else like to share? If not, we will enter into the actual plan for this evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, everyone. It's really exciting. I can't wait for the next sessions. Okay, so again, welcome to Agbo, the Poetics and Potentialities of Community-Centered Design Practice. One of the things that I will say before we enter into the space collectively is that as we begin to talk about these things, please begin to observe where you experience any openings in yourself. So where you're like really open to what is being said, and also please begin to observe also any kind of closings or closing ups in your things that make you kind of just like confused or just disagree with it. These are the kind of places that we really want to build dialogue around. This is going to be a primarily dialogue-based session because I am also a student in this realm of thinking. This is pretty nascent work for me. I'm very passionate about it, but there's just so much to know, and there's so much to know and there's so much to think about in this world. So in this particular field of community-centered design. So yes, please begin to take note of that. And if those come up, please do not hesitate to raise them up in dialogue. One other thing is, I guess that is actually primarily it. So having started with that, we're going to go into the actual presentation. So last week, I spoke about my design as ancestral longing, and kind of predicated on my own coming to design. And in realizing that within the ancestral were the answers that I desired for the kind of world I desired for myself, what design became for me was a fully embodied desire to express and realize the highest resonances of our humanity. So my humanity and the humanity of those in my sphere of influence. So my community, both locally and globally. And so so basically, going back to some of the things I talked about last week, a lot of times when the ancestral was presented to me was almost this, I guess it's a place of unproductivity. So, oh, they didn't really do anything of importance. So it's good that we were colonized and like the British came and gave us civilization. But the more I have researched about my own heritage, I've come to realize that many of the things that my ancestors created, not just materially, but also in designing systems for themselves, were actually quite useful. And more than useful, they made sense to a more ecological way of being, a way of being that really centers nature and also centers the human beings that the objects are interacting with. So these two things, so I don't know if you're seeing it similar to me, but on the left-hand side is a terracotta pot from the Lobi tribe. I'm kind of really interested in the Lobi tribe currently, so a lot of my examples are coming from them. This is a terracotta pot, and when I first saw it, at least when I first saw this pot, it just looked like it was an interesting piece, but it didn't give any sense of what its functionality was. Until I did research on it, I came to realize that it's actually a water filtration system that was developed by the Lobi. So they use terracotta as an ecological material of getting clean water for their community. Now, on the right-hand side is actually a more contemporary terracotta filter. And so recently, there's been research that shows that terracotta is actually a very, very powerful way of filtering water and providing clean water to one's home, one's workplace, basically one's life. And I began to realize that there is a lot of wisdom that can be lifted up, not just within our communities, but also a lot of ancestral wisdom that can be lifted up as a way of building the systems that support us, but even more that systems that support our ancestry. So it's seeing that we are also innovators. It's seeing that we're also able to begin to vision out the material world, the systems that we deserve to be able to live bountiful and rich lives and have things like accessible clean water. So I started thinking like, oh, I wonder what it would be like if we began to create production sites for these terracotta filtration systems and begin to share them with communities like Flint, Michigan, that are dealing with issues of clean water currently. So this is basically my own current resonance and interest in community-centered design. But for this session, it's more of now coming into community and say collectively, how can we begin to create a common language for community design practice? How do we collectively think about design and the role of design in our social transformation work? How have we seen design as in that work? And so we have a couple of, Patrick is going to be facilitating this part of the session. We have a couple of questions that hopefully trigger that dialogue. And I'm really excited to hear what we co-create together in this session. Okay, now passing it on to you, Patrick. And just tell me when you need me to shift the slides, and I'll do that.
That's fine, okay. So thank you very much, Mobolaji. Hi guys, Mobolaji has already laid the foundation for this session. And one thing that is significant is the aspect of the ancestry. And this might seem to be quite abstract from our reality. Why should we talk about the ancestry, and how does that have anything to do with our present day life experiences as well as design? But one the message that we're trying to pass through the session is the fact that we carry our ancestry within us. We carry the potentialities, the embodiment of generations past and generations to come, you know, just in basic ways like we have certain resemblances with our parents, our grandparents, as well as our siblings. So in looking at what we can create for our communities, create for ourselves, which in this regard, we're talking about design, because design goes beyond just art, creative pieces for the pleasure of the senses, to economic concepts, policies, research, etc. We begin to see how what drives us to want to create a certain design that makes us at ease with ourselves, or make us much more productive every day. So looking at just the design which Mobolaji just put up, that's the terracotta, and seeing a more contemporary design, it shows powerfully how that the ancestry is brought forward to our present times, meaning that we carry this ancestry within us. So it was just important that I create that understanding so that we don't see the ancestry as an abstract, disconnected aspect from our being. So that being said, I want to welcome all of us to this dialogue. It's a dialogue. It's not just one person speaking, but all of us will have to see the possibilities as well as the potentialities that exist. So the question I'm throwing to the floor is, what is design? What do you think design is, both for you as an individual and collectively as a community? So the floor is open. Come on.
I can share.
Okay.
Who is this? Just one.
Jenny.
Oh, Jenny. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jenny.
When I think of design, I think of creative thought taking shape.
Great.
So the way that I believe just design, art, anything like that comes to be is first from a thought, right? So design is that thought becoming reality. And when I think of design, I also think of usefulness meeting some form of beauty in order to serve a purpose within a community.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's, yes, and powerful too. I see functionality in what you're saying and aesthetics. Thank you, Jenny. So who else?
I think of co-creation and like manifesting. It's pretty much like because I think design can be, you know, pretty individual, because like there's graphic designers and there's like, you know, like there's so many different roles of like how design can come about, but it's really about like, well, really, like there's so many ways of it like becoming an entity. Like, so I just imagine like just like how do we want to portray like an image, or it could be how do we want to belong in a community. And so I feel like the range is really vast when it comes to design, but I mostly think of like a co-creative process.
Yeah.
There is a communication point between people around an idea. So even if one person is a like graphic designer, it's usually in collaboration with somebody else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's good. As a matter of fact, that answers the second question. But I think we should get one more contribution to this first question. So, what's design? Anybody else?
I can share.
Okay.
You know, when I think of design, I think about intention and values.
Intention.
And to intention and values, and how design is kind of the how your intention and values bridge between your consciousness and then what shows up, right? So design principles. Yeah, I see it as a bridge. And then I just noticed design has S-I-G-N, sign, and it's sort of to signify what this is, signify the shape or form of what you're creating.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Samantha. And you mentioned three powerful things: design as intention, value, and building a bridge. Those are powerful things. I won't forget that. So the next slide, Mobolaji, please can you help us with that? It says, what can be the role of design in context of the social transformation happening in our communities? So what can be the role? What's the role of design in this context of transformation? So yeah, can we talk about it?
So I can begin with this question because my experience with design has been primarily in social justice context, and so I have never experienced design outside of that. And so for me, design is essential to social transformation, and it's not just the material realm, but also in the realm of systems. And so I do love what Samantha just said about this design as this manifestation of intention meeting values, and it's even going just beyond the final product itself, but also what is the soil and what is the material. I don't know how to do. I don't know the word to use, but there was an organization I used to work with. Most of you are familiar with the organization, the Guild. And one of the things that we often said that really still resonates with me is it's not just what is created, but also who creates and who carries the knowledge of creating. And it's that idea that design is not just a visually and an experiential experience, but it's also an experience of economy. And so whoever makes an object, actually, this is the channel of how I think about it. When we are creating objects in our world, when we are manifesting objects in our world, or deciding to bring an object into our world, there is often a transaction that happens in like our current capitalist reality. And so it's a question of, for me, who is actually making the objects that I bring into my world? Who is making the systems that I exist within? And can I be sure that they're making it in a way that honors my ancestral self, my contemporary self, and also the selves that are coming, my descendants? And so that is always dialogue around design as a creator of design, but also as a person who desires design in their world.
So I see a lot of empathy communicated in what you're saying. Healing within communities by raising up design, and that's more bringing about that's more conscious designing, or designer taking the place of being, like Samantha said, intentional about what they want to bring about in the communities or the people who will use and interact with this design. Yeah, thank you, Mobolaji. So who else want to give a response to this question?
Yeah, I'll do it because I think there are many different ways, but one thing I do as a book guide is trying to go where people are at. Even if you don't agree with them, why convince them? You want to look where they're at. There's a book, I think it's called I used to be a neighbor of mine, Alan O'Rani. He wrote a book, I think it's called There Goes the Neighborhood. And he talked about how he got Mormons and evangelistic Christians to support immigration rules. He took values
Okay.
from the Bible, the Mormon Bible, to support charity, to support accepting people. You know, like Jesus was an immigrant, a refugee. You know, so he said he went where they are. So he talked in their religious values, and he went around to support immigrant rights.
Wow.
Quite powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you so much.
People where they are. Exactly. Design is a practice of meeting people where they are.
Indeed it is.
Yes.
Indeed it is. Indeed. Thank you, Louis. Anybody? Does anyone have something else to say? Something more to say, rather?
Yeah, I think, like, again, like, this is like the language that we're using for this time, like, because like design has always existed and human has always co-created like how we want communities to be structured. And I think it's just like what we're experiencing now in the US is like how much we're detached from that power of like being able to actually design your community. We have to go through municipalities and like city planners and get a permit and all that. So space is not really truly available. We have to go through, we have a governance process that's not really accessible, especially for Black people. And like, I think that's what, when I think about design, it's part of it is like, it feels so liberating to like think about like to be able to be like, oh, I can design this space in my community, because that's just hasn't been true for decades. Well, just even Black people in this country, that's really challenging to do because we weren't in that role. So like, I think part of design is also like thinking about how we can reframe our role in society and how we can look at ourselves as like actual people that's creating new structures and ideas of how we can be. And just even thinking about like defunding the police and like, what does that mean to like actually create a society with new roles that actually functions well for us. So like, yeah, I think a lot about like, this is our discourse now, and like, and like what will this language will become something else in like 50 years, but like this is what is important for us to focus on. And like that's I think that's why it's exciting to think about it in this way.
Well, that's
speak about it in that way. Thank you.
Listening to you, what's coming to my mind is me taking agency and taking responsibility for myself, for my community, for creating the kind of the life or the lived experience that I desire to manifest. Yeah, thank you so much for that. So the next slide, Mobolaji, please, can you help us with that?
Yes.
It says, is there a role for the ancestral in this practice of design? So what do we think about the ancestral? What do you think about the role of the ancestral in creating designs that are intentional and so on? Yeah.
Yes, there is a role.
Okay. So one thing I will ask is that we say our names, because Zoom is not letting me know who's talking, and I just want to make sure I'm noting who's talking, and that will also help James in his note taking. So is this Lizella or
no, this is Chrislyn?
Chrislyn, okay.
Okay, Chrislyn.
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't know what view y'all have.
Oh no, it's okay. Just Zoom is clear today.
Yes, there's room for the ancestral. I think that it's like a lot of what's happening these days. A lot of folks are thinking about ancestry because it's like there were some great gifts that we've already inherited around how to be in community, and for some reason we can't do the same things here. Some reason, there's plenty of reasons, but like we can go a laundry list of reasons. But like it would be so nice to, I think, feel community is so detached now, like just to be walking down the street and like especially in Boston, it's a pretty cold city. I grew up here,
Yeah.
so we're not that nice. I mean, like some Bostonians can like argue otherwise, but like when I go to the South in different countries, people say hi, and like people actually want to connect with each other.
Yeah.
Just like even simple ways of like how do we acknowledge like people like my like recently, like last year, like my mom was sharing about how like her family in Haiti was like they tend to share food with each other, and like just like during the pandemic early on when everything was shut down there, and like folks are poor, and it's just like if and we're talking in mutual aid, and like that looks like that structure looks different, but I just imagining like just going down the street and just like sharing food with your neighbor, that's not really reality right now, and that's the truth. I don't do that. I may wave to my neighbors and say hi, but the level of connection is not there. So I think that's something that feels really missing, and like the cultural piece to the aspect of singing and dancing and the simple things that we do to just like connect to ourselves and each other. We call it art, but like it could be really how our spirits work, and that feels like that's an ancestral practice that I do wish that we are able to like really tap into a little bit more, that's beyond performative too.
So I would like to say something to Chrislynn's point, because as she was speaking, I'm reminded of these little. I remember at the when I think when it became clear that certain families were during the height of the COVID pandemic. We're still in the pandemic, but certain families were dealing with food insecurity. I began to see images of these community, like kind of like public fridges in community, just say, come get food. And for me, that is a very powerful example of the ancestral in design, in the sense of creating this material object that is meant to serve a function, but with a very ancestral intent behind it, which is we are community, we do share food, we do care about the members of our community beyond just our individual self, which is a very Euro-capitalist of like myself and let the government deal with everybody else who has issues. But this was designed showing up in such a powerful way of creating the kind of community we desired. And it was just simple refrigerators. So yeah, thank you so much, Chrislyn, for showing that. It's not even just, because my personal interest in the ancestral is more from a question of the material. So what are the materials the ancestors used? What were the design logics they used? But it's also quite important to think about how did they even organize the systems of being, of like, what is the role of food in community? Is it something that is just an individual, like you just go to your own store and get your food? Or is, as I've learned in my own research, of like the idea of communal farming, and creating systems that allow for communal access to food. So thank you. This is quite beautiful. This is the conversation we need to have. Amazing.
Yeah, thank you, Chrislyn. Thank you, Mobolaji. So any other person, you have something to say about the role of the ancestral?
This may take it in a different direction, but I remember talking about longing, ancestral longing, and connecting to the earlier question about transformation. I find that a lot of the transformation narrative is justice, or sometimes even punitive, sort of taking down structures, and I think that is important. Forgive me, I'm going more organic, but I look at the design I look at your design, Mobolaji or Patrick, I'm not sure who designed this gourd. This gourd, it is just my heart. You asked in the beginning, like my heart's just, it's so beautiful. It is just such a beautiful design. It's such a beautiful piece of art, the treatment of it. And then you show me the real one, and then its meaning. And then we've talked about how it was created and how it's so all that coming together, the aesthetics, the longing, the connection, the storytelling. And I just I'm feeling so much longing in my heart beyond what I'm able to articulate. And I guess the question for me is, what is the role of longing in social transformation? I mean, I know there's justice and righteous anger and righting wrongs and taking down things, and I stop there. But what is the role of longing, right? Ancestral longing.
This is what. Does someone want to talk about that?
Thank you so much.
I love that question. What is the role of longing in design? Oof, I have a lot to say on that, but I want to hear what others have to carry, what others have to share.
Anyone?
Anyone?
I have some thoughts, and that's a fantastic question.
What is your name?
You guys hear me?
Is this Chrysaline or Jenny or... Hello?
Hello?
Hello, yeah.
Hello?
Because
okay.
I'm not seeing everyone speaking, so I'm not able to tell.
Chrysaline, the other Haitian.
Okay, it's Chrysaline. Chrysaline, yeah.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is just a note taking. I'm so sorry. Just like, who's talking? You just make a note. Okay.
So I'll make sure to say Jenny. This is Jenny speaking.
Okay, hi, Jenny.
Oh, Jenny.
It's okay. So that's a beautiful question. What's the role of longing? I am a firm believer that we will only create to the level of our imagination.
True,
right?
true,
so
true.
Longing gives you the infinite possibility that there's more to create, in my opinion, because once you lose longing, you lose creativity, because there's no more imaginations of the unknown or the yet to be seen. So I think longing allows us to imagine more and imagine what hasn't been seen. I believe that it's as I said before, like until you feel like something is missing, you'll never know. You'll never search for that thing, right? So it's until you like, longing is what creates adventures. Longing is what creates love stories. Longing is what creates exploration of identity. And I believe that in order for us to continue to create as man, continue to create as a community, longing has to be part of the process.
Woof!
Indeed. That's powerful.
I feel that in my womb. Thank you.
Yeah, church. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you so much. Mobolaji, do you still want to say something?
No, I think that there's a capture like that really is beautiful, of like and I think one of the things I would say, just connecting to what Samantha said, of like beginning to think of this body, of our bodies, as beyond just having to keep fighting and like designing for like pulling down, but actually designing from a proactive place of just desire, and from a proactive place of imagination, as Jenny said, of that longing for a world. And what does it mean to create from that place of fully being grounded in the ancestral, and fully being grounded in the possibilities of this form, of this body, of this mind, of this spirit, of this soul. what would that look like? What would our world look like? What would our homes look like? What would our marketplaces look like? What would our workplaces look like? Because and I break that into three because that's also an ancestral way of organizing the world in the Yoruba culture. You have the home, the farm, and the market. And so all of them have their importance in the journey of life. But sadly, I think in this particular Euro-capitalist context, the market has come to take more preeminence than the other two in a really in a meaningful way. But thank you so much. That was a beautiful question. Just such a beautiful contribution. Does anybody else want to contribute to the question?
Okay, so in the absence of no other questions, I think we could watch the video. Mobolaji, can you play the video?
So,
yeah,
this is one of my most favorite human beings in the world. He has passed, unfortunately. His name is Otuyelu, and he has. There was recently, not recently, past couple of years, there was a huge design exhibition around the future of African design, and he was invited to speak on the collection that they pulled together. One of the parts of that, I'm going to be showing just a short excerpt from that conversation where he talks about making. And so I would say use the word Africa as a proxy for the ancestral. So I think about that word less as a word for place, but as a word for a collective experience of many post-colonial communities and people. Post-colonial, post many things, just like white supremacy and European supremacy. But yeah, so this is about 3 to 4 minutes. It shouldn't be too long. And once we're done, if anything comes up, we can discuss. And then, yeah, I hope you enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed it. I've watched it like 20 times now. Oh, no. Oh, it took the whole video. It didn't delete the video. Okay, so I'm going to find where he speaks on making so that I don't have to show the whole thing. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me put just before it. Okay, nope. Okay, I just want to. Okay, great. So this part is not the part I wanted, but just to show that a bit.
Inspire designers to make useless things, make to produce. I think it's really everything that has to do, in my view, with challenging the complacency of, mass consumption. To make something, is really very crucial because I think we reinvest in the power of the imagination. Because one of the things that have destroyed many African economies is, the importation of cheap goods. So we need to take up on the political utility of making, the renegade, practice of making as a form of investigating new tropes, new concepts, and new industries within the African context.
Okay, so it's really short, but a lot said, in my opinion. So does anyone have any thoughts on what he said? The first thing is like the thing that just like struck me is the renegade act of making, the political utility of making, and it just like crystallized for me just the deep importance of beginning to build a community of makers, of beginning to see ourselves as makers, and of beginning to inspire making in our community. And yeah, so I'll stop there. Does anybody have any thoughts to share on this?
So one thing I would say is, Joe Okwe was speaking with regards to Africa. This applies beyond the continent of Africa. We're a community of people from different parts of the world. And so we can see how what Okwe is communicating applies to us as makers, as designers, and our role to take in agency of what we manifest in our communities and in our lives. Yeah. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any makers in the room? Anyone who considers themselves as a maker in community?
We are all makers.
We are all makers, but I'm just saying like self, I don't know. I guess in the sense of like self-identified makers.
You know, I try to be a maker. I really want, my son is 9 and he's so caught up with like kids, you know, so much shopping with, you know, the toys that come a lot of plastic. And so for this holidays, I said, you know, let's make something very simple. So we just made bookmarks, you know, and we just drew on big paper and different techniques and cut it into bookmarks and, you know, very, very simple. And people really, really loved it. And I'm trying my best to have that politic, that the joy of making and giving and the joy of receiving something that's made, even if it's super small, because I do see it as a political act to maintain our connection to making, even if it's a small connection. And even though, you know, Amazon or whatever is so overwhelming, I have to go to put Darshan to bed, my son. I just wanted to say thank you so much for this conversation. And
yes,
Mobolaji,
thank you so much.
Catch out, and Patrick and everyone. I'm sorry I have to leave halfway. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So we do have 6 more minutes, and so we'll see how much you can get done before 8:30.
So, yeah, Mobolaji can move. You can go on with
now, oh, sorry. Do not. Okay. So this is what I have. This is what I came to as a description for community design in my world, in just based off of the research, but also something that I wanted us to meditate on collectively. So community design as acts of world making that centers our ancestors, ourselves, and our descendants. I choose to focus on these, the ancestors, the self, the descendants, more as a place of where that source of desire to make is inspired from. So yeah, we have a couple more questions to go through, but does anyone want to speak to this particular definition? Does it resonate? Does it not resonate? I just want to hear thoughts. Or maybe we can put thumbs up if it resonates in our chats. Awesome. And for those it doesn't resonate with, I'm going to be sending my email after. You can send me an email. I would like to dialogue around these things. Again, as I said, I am a student in this. I'm as much of a student as anyone else is in this room. I don't know. I'm just learning. I'm just growing. I'm just really immersing in this world. And from all my work, this is where I stand now with what design, community design is to me.
So I do agree with you, Mobolaji. This definition of community design. Here we see the past, the present, and the future in harmony, in sync. And when you talk about the ancestors, ourselves, and our descendants, we're looking at this. Oh, Jenny said the definition feels incomplete for me. Okay, so okay, so I think Jenny should bring that in. Jenny, please, can you talk about? Can you share, please?
Hi, this is Jenny for notes.
Hi, Jenny.
I love this definition, and for me, it feels incomplete because for me, it's missing the divine. And I think every time we center creation on man, we lose sight of the fact that we are created beings, in my opinion. So for me, this is great. Like, it actually is a really great definition. And what would make it feel more complete for me is acknowledging the divine in the framing, because I believe, for me, that the creation comes from a creator. And because we are made in his image, we have more access to be creative. And that includes holding space for those who have gone, those who are here, and those to come.
Ash, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That
resonates deeply with me. Thank you, Jenny. Does anybody else want to share? We have 2 more minutes. So I'm just gonna like breeze through. Actually, let me just breeze through, so because I know other people, you guys might have more things to do, and I don't want to. Hold on, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I'll say something to her.
Yes.
Jenny? Well, I don't always think of the divine, but I think that we're a creation of our environment and our ancestors. We're a creation of our environment and genes. And I think sort of the end of the thing is even if we step on the ground, we might kill an insect. And we were created by certain things. Our mind was created. What we were we're makers, but we're not quite. We may be making it, but it's a continuous thing from influence of our environment and the ancestry.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Louise, I love that you brought up that word of the environment, you know, and how we are really also we are co-creating an environment. We are created in environment. And how does that also connect to kind of the ancestral? That's how I'm understanding what you said.
Yeah.
I think we have a new I don't see your name, but actually we can just keep moving. So we have so I would just say, if people just give me 5 minutes and we'll just breeze through things. And okay, so then the next section quickly is just co-visioning together a community design practice predicated on the ancestral and love. And love came up for me as a huge ingredient in creating. So creating from self-love, community love, ancestral love, just a general place of really what would a world in which the love for ourselves, love for our community, what would that look like? What would be a world in which we are innovating through the love for ourselves and our community look like? So we might not have time to meditate on these questions, but what I will actually do, given that we have reached time, is that I will share these questions after for us to collectively think about it, because what I would like us to create together next week, because next week is the co-creative part of not next week, next month is the co-creative aspect of our work, is that I would like us to begin to think about and really looking at our homes, looking at our workplaces, looking at the marketplaces, where do we see design interventions that we can manifest? Just like if you had the capacity to transform something about your home, about your marketplace, about your workplace, what project would you work on? And I want to, and I guess I'll send this, but I would like us to think about, really reflect on it and create a project and present the project. And it could be presented through any expression you want to. So you can create the project through a film. You can create the project through a spoken word performance. But it really is saying that it really is, the energy of it is basically This is something I would like to manifest in the world, to make this happen in my world and in my community. This is an act of world making I would like to engage with in my current sphere of influence. I just want to make sure I'm making sense. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Hello, Marcia. Oh, Marcia just left. So does anyone have any question on what next month, what we're expecting next month?
So you're basically asking for like just one element. So the first thing that popped up in my mind was doors. Oh, doors could be something to play with.
That would be nice.
But I don't know how it's gonna look like. I just made that up in my brain. Like, but like I don't know how I would like make it like visible. Like, is that like going to happen next month, or is this going to be like a longer process?
Oh no, so basically what would be great is we don't necessarily, now if you decide you want to make a door and present the door, that would be amazing. But the goal more is to begin to get our minds thinking about, thinking as designers, as makers, as humans, as current humans who are in who have an ancestral lineage, who also have and who are also carriers of descendants. How would you think about making a door? What does a door mean to you? How can a door become a location of, I don't know, like what are you trying to problem solve with that door? Or what are you trying to manifest with that door? Is it a door that celebrates a way of thinking about the home, a way of thinking about the workplace, a way of thinking about the marketplace that centers more healthy, more, I don't know. These are just the kind of questions that I hope that come up in conceptualizing the door and then presenting on, this is a door that could 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe could do this in my community, could do this in my home, etc. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Yeah, I want to say something. So Mobolaji, I'm thinking that the focus should be more on the process of the design, not the end product, what you want to present next month. So yeah, the process, you don't have to have a finished work at the end of by next month, but you can engage us in the conversation of the design that you are embarking on and the impact you foresee or that's happening already.
Yeah, and it could be for it doesn't have to be a material level design. It could be a systemic design. It could be a way of, designing a new way of thinking around, of like convening food-based experiences. Like it could just be really just take it where your spirit is leading you and where your spirit is carrying you. It really is just a space of dreaming, and it's a space of also beginning to embody that agency of acting on the world in the way that you deserve, manifesting the world you deserve, or we deserve collectively as a community. Okay, so it's 8:35. Any last minute thoughts, questions? I wanted to end it with a prayer, but I just wanted to hear other voices at the end. Anybody else want to share? Okay, so then may the steps our ancestors took continue to illuminate our path. I said this intentionally, as I said, because the ancestral is a huge part of my practice and my work in the world. And I hope that my prayer is, or my hope, or like my prayer, I use the word prayer actually. My prayer is that as we begin to move forward from this particular session, and as we begin to think about this design that we want to manifest in the world, our ancestors are coming and be a part of that co-creation, our descendants coming and be a part of that co-creation, and our community also comes in and becomes a part of that co-creation. So thank you all so much for your time and for your engagement and for your passion that you shared. I'm really grateful.
Thank you so
Isaac,
much.
you want to say something?
Thank you. No, thank you. It was an amazing session. I really enjoyed myself. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. See you all next month.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye.